When struggling waitress, Maya delivers food to a luxury penthouse. She never expects to come face to face with Ethan Reed, the boy who broke her heart and now runs his family's billion-dollar empire. But can old sparks reignite when the truth behind their separation finally comes to light? Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The late afternoon sun cast long shadows across the bustling streets of Westwood as Maya Chen hurried along the sidewalk, her worn sneakers barely keeping pace with her racing thoughts. At 28, she had imagined her life would be different. Culinary school completed, perhaps her own restaurant, definitely not juggling 3 jobs just to make rent. Maya adjusted the insulated delivery bag hanging from her shoulder, checking the address on her phone one more time. The SkyView Tower loomed ahead, its glass facade gleaming in the sunset, a monument to wealth and privilege that made her small studio apartment feel even more inadequate by comparison. "Penthouse delivery," she muttered to herself. "Great, just what I needed today." Her phone buzzed with a text from her roommate Zoe. "Don't forget, rent due tomorrow." "You still short?" Maya sighed, not bothering to respond. They both knew the answer. She was always short these days, ever since her mother's medical bills had started piling up. Cancer didn't care about your financial situation, and neither did landlords. The doorman at SkyView Tower eyed her delivery uniform with practiced indifference. "Delivery for the penthouse," Maya said, trying to sound confident. "They're expecting you. Take the express elevator." Key card required. He handed her a temporary access card. "Return this on your way out." The elevator was mirrored and spotless, making Maya acutely aware of her appearance. Hair hastily tied back, dark circles under her eyes, the logo on her shirt slightly faded from too many washes. She tried to smooth the wrinkles from her uniform as the numbers climbed higher. 80, 81, 82, PH. A soft ding announced her arrival. The doors opened to reveal an entryway that was larger than her entire apartment, with soaring ceilings and floor-to-ceiling windows showcasing a breathtaking view of the city. "Hello," Maya called out, hesitating at the threshold. "Food delivery." No response. She stepped cautiously into the penthouse, the marble floors cool beneath her feet. The place seemed impossibly quiet, as if the very air was expensive. "Hello? Anyone home?" A sound from deeper in the apartment drew her attention, someone clearing their throat. Maya followed the sound to an expansive living room, where a man stood with his back to her, looking out over the city, phone pressed to his ear. "I don't care what it takes," he was saying, his voice low and authoritative. "The Jensen account is non-negotiable. Find a way to make it work." There was something familiar about the set of his shoulders, the way he ran his hand through his dark hair. Maya froze, a memory stirring from long ago. "I'll leave your food here," she said, her voice barely above a whisper as she set the bag on a glass coffee table. The man turned, ending his call, and Maya's heart stopped. Ethan Reed, 10 years older than when she'd last seen him, but unmistakably him. The boy from her hometown who had been her first love, her first heartbreak. The same sharp jawline, now accentuated by a light stubble. The same intense dark eyes that had once looked at her like she was his entire world. Those eyes widened in recognition. Maya? She took an involuntary step backward. "I should go." "Wait." He moved toward her, phone forgotten in his hand. "Maya Chen. Is that really you?" Maya forced herself to breathe, to remember that she was here as a delivery person, nothing more. "Your food," she said stiffly. "The receipt is in the bag. Everything's paid for." Ethan wasn't looking at the food. He was staring at her like he'd seen a ghost. "How long has it been? 10 years? 11. Maya corrected automatically, then wished she hadn't. She didn't want him to know she'd counted. A silence stretched between them, filled with unspoken words and memories Maya had tried hard to bury. High school sweethearts with big dreams. His family's disapproval, the scholarship she'd lost. The letter that had ended everything. "I didn't know you were in Westwood," he said finally. I didn't know you were back from New York, she countered. Ethan gestured vaguely. The family business. My father's health hasn't been good. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. The mention of his father sent a chill through Maya. Lawrence Reed had made it abundantly clear that the daughter of Chinese immigrants who ran a small neighborhood restaurant wasn't good enough for his son, the heir to Reed Enterprises. "I'm sorry to hear that," she said, meaning it, despite everything. "I hope he recovers." Ethan took another step toward her. "How have you been, Maya? What happened to culinary school? I thought." "I really should go," Maya interrupted, moving toward the elevator. "I have other deliveries." "Wait," Ethan called after her. "Are you working for Taste of Home delivery service? Is that your company?" Maya almost laughed at the assumption. Of course he would think she owned the business rather than just being an employee. "No, just a job. One of 3, actually." Confusion crossed his face. 3 jobs? But what about cooking? You were so talented." "Life happens," Maya said flatly. 11 years is a long time. Before he could respond, her phone buzzed with a new delivery alert. "I have to go. Enjoy your dinner." She stepped into the elevator, refusing to look back at him, refusing to acknowledge the way her heart hammered in her chest or how her hands trembled slightly as she pressed the lobby button. It wasn't until the doors closed that she allowed herself to lean against the wall, eyes shut tight against the flood of memories. Ethan Reed. Here, in Westwood. The boy who had promised forever, then disappeared from her life without a word, leaving only a brief letter explaining that they wanted different things, that their worlds were too different, that it was better this way. The elevator reached the lobby, and Maya composed herself, returning the keycard to the doorman before stepping out into the evening air. Her phone buzzed again, reminding her of reality. 3 more deliveries before her shift ended, then a quick shower before her night shift at the Lotus, a high-end Asian fusion restaurant where she worked as a line cook. Sleep would have to wait. It always did. The next morning, Maya dragged herself through her shift at Brewed Awakening, the coffee shop where she worked from 5 a.m. to noon, 3 days a week. Her encounter with Ethan had left her restless, memories surfacing that she'd thought were long buried. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Zoe commented when Maya finally returned to their apartment, collapsing onto their worn couch. "Bad shift?" Maya hesitated. She rarely spoke about her past, especially not about Ethan. "I ran into someone yesterday. Someone from home." Zoe perked up. "Someone good or someone bad?" "Both," Maya admitted. "My ex from high school. First love, worst heartbreak, the whole cliché." "And?" "Details, please. Was he fat and balding?" "Tell me he was fat and balding while you looked amazing." Despite herself, Maya laughed. "No such luck. He looks successful. He's living in the penthouse at SkyView Tower." Zoe whistled. "Damn. That's prime real estate. What's he do?" "His family owns Reed Enterprises. They're like hotel magnates or something." "Wait." Zoe sat up straighter. "Reed as in Lawrence Reed? The hotel guy who's always in the business section? That Reed?" Maya nodded. "And you dated his son? How did I not know this about you?" Maya shrugged. "It was a lifetime ago. Small town? Different worlds. Classic story. Rich boy, ordinary girl, parents disapprove, relationship ends. Nothing special." Zoe studied her face. "Doesn't sound like nothing from the way you're avoiding eye contact." Before Maya could respond, her phone chimed with a notification. An email from Taste of Home. "Customer request. Specific delivery driver." "That's weird," Maya muttered, opening the email. Request from E. Reed address, SkyView Tower. Penthouse delivery time, 7 p.m. today. Special instructions. Request delivery by Maya Chen. Will include substantial tip. "You've got to be kidding me," Maya said, showing Zoe the phone. Zoe's eyes widened. "Substantial tip, huh? Maybe Romeo wants a second chance. Or maybe he's just curious, or bored, or feels guilty." Maya shook her head. "Doesn't matter. I'm not doing it." "Maya." Zoe's voice became serious. Your mom's treatment starts next week. We're still short on rent. Can you really afford to turn down a substantial tip right now? Reality crashed back like a wave. Her mother's cancer had returned, more aggressive this time. The experimental treatment not covered by insurance. The mounting bills. The constant gnawing fear. Fine, Maya sighed. One delivery. But that's it. At precisely 7 p.m., Maya stood again in the express elevator of SkyView Tower, this time with a knot in her stomach that had nothing to do with hunger. She'd changed out of her coffee shop uniform into her delivery clothes, had even taken the time to apply a touch of lip gloss and brush out her long black hair. She told herself it was professional pride, nothing more. The elevator doors opened to reveal Ethan waiting for her, casual in jeans and a simple button-down shirt that probably cost more than her monthly rent. He smiled, and for a moment Maya was 17 again, feeling that same flutter in her chest that he'd always caused. "You came," he said, sounding genuinely pleased. Maya held up the delivery bag. "Just doing my job." "Right." He stepped back to let her enter. "Thank you for accepting the request." The penthouse looked different in the evening light. Warmer somehow, less intimidating. Maya noticed details she'd missed before. Framed photographs on side tables, a bookshelf filled with well-worn novels, a vintage record player in the corner. "You can set it down in the kitchen," Ethan said, leading the way. "I ordered enough for 2. I thought maybe, if you're not in a rush." Maya paused. "You want me to stay for dinner?" "Just to talk," he said quickly. "Catch up. It's been 11 years, like you said." "I have another job after this," Maya said, which wasn't technically a lie. She wasn't scheduled at the Lotus tonight, but she often picked up extra shifts when they were available. Disappointment flickered across Ethan's face. "Another time, maybe?" Maya set the food on the sleek kitchen island. "Why, Ethan? What's the point?" He seemed taken aback by her directness. "Because it's good to see you. Because I've wondered about you over the years. Because you feel guilty?" Maya supplied. "Don't. We were kids. These things happen." Ethan frowned. "That's not." "The receipt is in the bag," Maya interrupted, turning to leave. "Enjoy your dinner." "I never wrote that letter," Ethan blurted out. Maya froze. "What?" "The letter. The breakup letter. I didn't write it." Slowly, Maya turned back to face him. "It was in your handwriting." "My father," Ethan said quietly. "He had me write out college applications all day. When I left to meet you, he used one of the blank pages with my handwriting already at the bottom. He composed the letter himself." Maya felt like the floor was tilting beneath her feet. "That's not possible." "It is." Ethan's expression was pained. "I only found out later, after I'd been shipped off to boarding school in Switzerland. He told me you'd moved on, that you'd declined my calls because you wanted a clean break." "I never received any calls," Maya whispered. "I know that now," Ethan said. "But then, I was 18, hurt, confused. By the time I came back, you were gone. Your parents said you'd moved away for school." Maya's mind raced, replaying those painful months after their breakup. The letter that had crushed her. The lost scholarship to culinary school that she'd later learned had mysteriously been rescinded. The job offer her father had received that had prompted their family's move across the state. "Your father?" she said slowly. "He made sure we wouldn't find our way back to each other." Ethan nodded, his expression grim. "I confronted him about it years later. He didn't even deny it. Said he did what was necessary for the family's future." "For my future." Maya felt 11 years of hurt and confusion shifting inside her, rearranging themselves into a new pattern that made a terrible kind of sense. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I saw you yesterday and realized I never got over you," Ethan said simply. "And because my father is dying." The stark admission hung in the air between them. "I'm sorry," Maya said again, meaning it. Whatever Lawrence Reed had done, she wouldn't wish death on anyone. 3 months, maybe less, Ethan continued. "Pancreatic cancer. It's why I moved back from New York. To help with the business transition, to be with him at the end." Maya didn't know what to say. Part of her, a small hurt part, wanted to feel vindicated that the man who had torn apart her first love was suffering. But the larger part, the part that had held her mother's hand through chemo sessions and late-night pain episodes, couldn't find any satisfaction in another family's pain. "I should go," she said finally. "Maya, please." Ethan took a step toward her. "Can we just talk? Not about the past, not about my father, just you. Your life. What happened after?" Maya hesitated. She should leave, walk away from Ethan Reed and the complicated feelings he stirred up, focus on her mother, on making rent, on surviving another day. But something in his eyes, a vulnerability she'd never seen before, made her pause. 30 minutes, she conceded. "That's all I can spare." Relief washed over his face. "Thank you." They sat at the kitchen island, the delivery food between them growing cold, as Maya gave him the condensed version of her life since their separation. The lost scholarship. Her mother's first cancer diagnosis 6 years ago that had drained their savings, the student loans she'd taken out for community college, only to drop out when her mother got sick again. The 3 jobs she worked now to keep them afloat. Ethan listened without interrupting, his expression growing increasingly troubled. "The scholarship," he said when she finished. "The one to the California Culinary Institute. You said it was rescinded. Did they say why?" Maya shrugged. "Administrative error was the official line, but it happened right after we broke up. So, my father?" Ethan said, his voice tight with anger. "He was on the board of trustees. He must have pulled strings." The confirmation of what she'd long suspected should have angered Maya, but instead, she just felt tired. "It doesn't matter now." "It does matter," Ethan insisted. "He derailed your entire future, Maya, and mine." "Your future seems fine from where I'm sitting," Maya said, gesturing to the luxurious apartment around them. "This?" Ethan laughed without humor. "This is a gilded cage. I never wanted to run hotels. I wanted to design them, remember? Architecture was my dream." Maya did remember. They had planned it together. She would be a chef, he would be an architect. They'd create boutique hotels with world-class restaurants, a perfect partnership. "You didn't become an architect," she stated rather than asked. Ethan shook his head. "Business school at my father's insistence." Then straight into the family company, the dutiful son, following the path laid out for him. For the first time, Maya looked at him, really looked at him, and saw beyond the expensive clothes and successful exterior. She saw the shadows under his eyes, the tension in his shoulders, the same trapped look she sometimes caught in her own reflection. "We both lost our dreams," she said softly. "Maybe," Ethan agreed. "Or maybe they were just delayed." Maya glanced at her watch and stood abruptly. "I have to go. It's been more than 30 minutes." "Will you come back?" Ethan asked, walking her to the elevator. "Not as a delivery person, as yourself." Maya hesitated. "I don't know if that's a good idea." "Just think about it." Ethan pressed a business card into her hand. "My personal number, if you change your mind." As the elevator doors closed between them, Maya felt something she hadn't experienced in years. Possibility. Dangerous, complicated possibility. Back in her apartment, Maya found her mother sitting at their small kitchen table, sorting medication into a weekly pill organizer. Lin Chen looked up with a smile that didn't quite mask her exhaustion. "You're late," she observed. "Extra shift?" Maya bent to kiss her mother's cheek. "Something like that. How are you feeling?" "Better today." The familiar lie they both pretended to believe. "Did you eat?" "There's leftover rice and vegetables." "I'll heat some up in a bit." Maya sat across from her mother, watching as frail fingers sorted colorful pills with practiced precision. "Mom, do you remember Ethan Reed?" Lynn's hands stilled momentarily. "The boy from home? Your first love?" "I saw him yesterday. And today. He's here, in Westwood." Her mother's expression was carefully neutral. "Is that so?" "He told me something." Maya hesitated. "About his father. About why we broke up." Lynn resumed her task, not meeting Maya's eyes. "The past is the past, Maya. Best to leave it there." There was something in her mother's tone that caught Maya's attention. "Did you know? About what his father did?" Lynn sighed deeply. We suspected. Your father and I, the timing of everything, the scholarship, the job offer that brought us here. It was too convenient. Why didn't you tell me? What good would it have done? Lynn asked gently. You were heartbroken already. Knowing the truth would only have made it worse. And we needed that job, Maya. Your father's restaurant was failing. We had no choice. Maya felt a surge of anger, not at her mother, but at Lawrence Reed, at the system that had allowed one powerful man to manipulate so many lives. His father is dying, Maya said. Cancer. Lynn nodded slowly. Then, perhaps, there will be closure for everyone. That night, lying in bed, Maya turned Ethan's business card over and over in her fingers. Seeing him again had unearthed feelings she'd thought long buried. Not just the hurt and betrayal, but the connection they'd once shared, the dreams they'd spun together. Her phone buzzed with a text from Zoe, who was working a late shift at the bar. How was dinner with Mr. Penthouse? Get that substantial tip? Maya had almost forgotten about the tip. She checked her delivery app and gasped. Ethan had left a $500 tip on a $60 order. $500! Enough to cover what they were short on rent with some left over. Maya's first instinct was to return it. It felt too much like charity, like pity. But with her mother's treatment starting next week and their finances stretched to breaking point, could she really afford pride right now? Another text came through, this one from an unknown number. It was good to see you tonight. I meant what I said about the past. Some dreams are just delayed, not destroyed. Ethan. Maya stared at the message, her finger hovering over the reply button. A response would open a door she wasn't sure she should walk through. No response would close it forever. She thought of her mother sorting pills at the kitchen table, of the dreams she'd abandoned, of the boy who had once been her future, now a man offering. What exactly? Before she could overthink it, Maya typed a reply. Thank you for the tip. It's too much. His response came almost immediately. It's not charity, Maya. It's an apology, the first of many I owe you. Maya took a deep breath and made a decision. I'm free on Thursday evening. She pressed send before she could change her mind, then set her phone aside and closed her eyes, wondering if she'd just made a terrible mistake or taken the first step toward reclaiming something she'd thought was lost forever. Either way, for the first time in years, Maya fell asleep thinking about possibilities rather than problems. Thursday arrived with a sense of nervous anticipation that Maya hadn't felt in years. She found herself checking the clock repeatedly during her shift at Brood Awakening, earning curious glances from her coworkers. Hot date? Her manager asked as Maya fumbled a simple latte order. Just meeting an old friend, Maya replied, trying to sound casual. But Ethan Reed was far more than an old friend, and the prospect of seeing him again, deliberately this time, not as delivery person and customer, had her stomach in knots. After her shift, Maya rushed home to shower and change. She stood before her closet, suddenly conscious of how few nice clothes she owned. Most of her wardrobe consisted of work uniforms and comfortable basics, nothing suitable for meeting a man who probably owned suits that cost more than her monthly income. Wear the green dress, her mother suggested from the doorway, startling Maya. The one from Zoe's birthday. Maya turned, surprised to find her mother up and dressed. Lynn had been spending more time in bed lately, conserving her energy for the treatment ahead. You're feeling better? Lynn smiled. A good day. Now, the green dress? The dress in question was a simple wrap style in emerald green that Maya had splurged on for her roommate's birthday celebration last year. It was the nicest thing she owned, though still modest by most standards. It's not a date, Mom, Maya protested weakly. Of course not, Lynn agreed, but her eyes twinkled knowingly. Just dinner with an old friend who happens to be a handsome young man living in a penthouse. Despite her nervousness, Maya laughed. When you put it that way. An hour later, dressed in the green dress with her hair flowing loose around her shoulders, Maya stood in the lobby of SkyView Tower. This time, she wasn't carrying a delivery bag, wasn't wearing a uniform. This time, she was a guest. Ms. Chen. The doorman greeted her with newfound respect. "Mr. Reed is expecting you. You can go right up." The express elevator felt different somehow. Less intimidating, less like she was intruding in a world where she didn't belong. When the doors opened to the penthouse, Ethan was waiting. Casually elegant in dark jeans and a blue button-down that brought out the warmth in his eyes. "You came," he said, echoing his words from Monday evening, but this time with a genuine smile that reached his eyes. "I came," Maya confirmed, stepping into the penthouse. Ethan looked at her appreciatively. "You look beautiful." Maya felt a blush creep up her neck. "Thank you. This place looks different when I'm not rushing in and out with deliveries." "Let me give you the tour," Ethan offered, leading her through the spacious apartment. The penthouse was impressive without being ostentatious, clearly expensive but designed for comfort rather than show. What surprised Maya most were the personal touches. Photographs of places rather than people, books everywhere, and in one room, a drafting table covered with architectural sketches. "You still design," she observed, moving closer to examine the detailed drawings of what appeared to be a small boutique hotel. Ethan nodded, a hint of self-consciousness in his expression. "Just for myself. My father doesn't know." "These are beautiful," Maya said honestly, admiring the thoughtful layouts, the integration of natural elements, the clear vision behind each stroke. "It's what keeps me sane," Ethan admitted. "The company demands most of my time, but I still make space for this. For what I love." There was something in his tone, a quiet defiance perhaps, that resonated with Maya. Despite everything, he had found a way to preserve part of his dream. "What about you?" he asked. "Do you still cook? Not just at work, but for yourself, for the joy of it?" The question caught Maya off guard. The truth was, cooking had become a job, a means to an end. The passion that had once driven her toward culinary school had been buried beneath the weight of necessity. "Not really," she admitted. "There's never enough time. Or energy." "I understand," Ethan said, and Maya believed he did. "But sometimes, we need to remember why we loved something in the first place." He led her to the kitchen, where Maya was surprised to find not a catered meal waiting, but ingredients laid out neatly on the counter. "I thought maybe we could cook together," Ethan explained, looking suddenly uncertain. "Like we used to in your parents. Restaurant after hours. But if you'd rather just go out." "No," Maya interrupted, feeling a spark of the old excitement she'd once felt around food. "This is perfect." What followed was the most relaxed evening Maya had experienced in years. They fell into an easy rhythm, moving around the kitchen together, Ethan following Maya's instructions as they prepared a simple but elegant meal of seared scallops with risotto and roasted vegetables. The conversation flowed naturally, focusing on the present rather than the painful past. Ethan told her about his years in New York, running the East Coast division of Reed Enterprises. Maya shared stories about the characters she'd met working in food service, the chef at the Lotus who had taken her under his wing, the regular customers who brightened her days. As they sat down to eat the meal they'd created together, Maya realized she was enjoying herself in a way she hadn't in a very long time. There was an ease between them, as if the years apart had been weeks instead of a decade. "This is delicious," Ethan said, savoring a bite of the risotto. "You never lost your touch." "It's easy to cook when you have top-quality ingredients and a kitchen like this," Maya replied, gesturing around the gleaming space with its professional-grade appliances. "It's not the kitchen that makes the chef," Ethan countered. "It's the passion, the instinct. You still have both." Maya took a sip of her wine, considering his words. "Maybe, but passion doesn't pay the bills." "No," Ethan agreed. "But sometimes it's what makes the bills worth paying." After dinner, they moved to the balcony with glasses of wine. The city stretched out below them, a tapestry of lights against the night sky. The view was breathtaking, but Maya found herself more interested in the man beside her than the panorama before them. "Can I ask you something?" she said after a comfortable silence. "Anything." "Are you happy, Ethan?" Running the company? Living your father's dream instead of your own? The question hung between them, more intimate somehow than any discussion of their shared past might have been. Ethan considered it carefully. Happy isn't the right word. Fulfilled sometimes. Challenged, certainly. But happy? He shook his head slowly. I think I've been too busy to consider happiness for a long time. The honesty of his response touched Maya. How strange to think that this man, with all his apparent advantages, might be as adrift in his own way as she was in hers. What about you? Ethan asked. Are you happy? Maya looked out at the city lights. I'm surviving. That's been enough. And if it could be more than survival? Ethan turned to face her. What would you want then? The question stirred something in Maya that she'd kept buried for years, the daring to want more, to dream beyond the next paycheck, the next bill, the next crisis. I'd want to cook again, she said softly. Really cook, create. Not just follow someone else's recipes or rush through prep work. I'd want my own space, something small, not even a restaurant necessarily, maybe a catering business or a food truck, something that's mine. Ethan nodded, his eyes never leaving her face. You'd be amazing. It's just a dream, Maya said, suddenly self-conscious. Dreams matter, Ethan insisted. They're what make us who we are. The intensity in his gaze made Maya look away, uncomfortable with the vulnerability of the moment. It's getting late. I should probably go. Ethan didn't argue, though she thought she saw disappointment flash across his face. I'll call you a car. As they waited for the elevator, an awkward silence fell between them, the easy rapport of the evening giving way to uncertainty. Thank you for tonight, Maya said finally. It was nice. Unexpected, but nice. Would you consider doing it again? Ethan asked. Maybe Sunday. I could pick you up this time. Maya hesitated. Tonight had been pleasant, more than pleasant, but was it wise to continue? To reopen a door to a world that had caused her so much pain in the past? The elevator arrived with a soft ding. Okay, she found herself saying. Sunday. Ethan's smile was worth the risk. I'll pick you up at 6. In the car, on the way home, Maya replayed the evening in her mind, cooking in that beautiful kitchen, talking easily with Ethan, feeling, for a few hours at least, like her old self again. The self that had dreams beyond survival, that found joy in creating something beautiful, that believed in possibilities. It was dangerous, this reawakening of hope, dangerous and exhilarating. When she arrived home, she found her mother still awake, sitting in their small living room with a cup of tea. You're up late, Maya observed, slipping off her shoes. I wanted to hear about your evening, Lynn admitted, with the boy who was not your date. Maya smiled, settling beside her mother on the worn couch. It was nice. We cooked together, talked. Just like old times? Not exactly. Maya stared into the distance. We're different people now. But there's still something. Lynn studied her daughter's face. Be careful, Maya. Not because he isn't worthy, but because hope is a fragile thing when you've gone without it for so long. I know, Mom. Maya squeezed her mother's hand. But maybe it's time to let a little hope back in. The following days passed in a blur of work shifts and preparations for her mother's treatment. Maya tried to focus on the practical concerns of their lives, the medical appointments, the bills, the scheduling of her jobs around her mother's needs, but her thoughts kept returning to Ethan and the evening they'd shared. On Saturday, while restocking cups at Brewed Awakening, Maya's phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. Looking forward to tomorrow. Where can I pick you up? Maya stared at the message, suddenly reluctant to share her address. Her apartment was in a rundown building in a neighborhood that had seen better days. The contrast between her world and Ethan's would be impossible to ignore once he saw where she lived. Pride warred with practicality. Finally, she typed a response. Can we meet somewhere instead? There's a park near my place. I can send the location. His reply came quickly. Whatever makes you comfortable, but I'd like to meet your mother, if that's possible. She was always kind to me. The request surprised Maya. Ethan remembered her mother, wanted to see her again. It was such a simple human desire, to reconnect with someone who had once been part of his life, that Maya felt her reservations softening. "I'll ask her," she replied. That evening, when Maya broached the subject, Lynn's reaction was unexpected enthusiasm. "Of course he should come here," she insisted. "I remember him as a good boy, respectful. I would like to see the man he's become." "Mom, the apartment," Maya began. "Is our home," Lynn finished firmly. "We keep it clean, we pay our rent, we have nothing to be ashamed of." Maya recognized the stubborn set of her mother's jaw, the pride that mirrored her own. "Okay, I'll tell him." Sunday arrived, and despite her mother's assurances, Maya spent the morning cleaning their small apartment with almost frantic energy. She washed windows, scrubbed counters, arranged and rearranged the few family photographs they displayed. "He's not coming to inspect the apartment," Lynn observed with amusement. "He's coming to see you." "I know," Maya sighed, finally collapsing onto the couch. "I'm being ridiculous." "No," Lynn said gently, "you're being human. It's natural to want to present your best self, and your best home, to someone whose opinion matters to you." At precisely 6 o'clock, there was a knock at their door. Maya took a deep breath, smoothed down her simple sundress, and opened it. Ethan stood in the hallway, looking slightly out of place in the shabby building but completely at ease in himself. He held a bouquet of fresh flowers and a small gift bag. "Hi," he said simply. "Hi," Maya replied, stepping back to let him in. "Welcome to our home." If Ethan registered the modest surroundings, the worn furniture, the cramped space, he gave no indication. Instead, his attention focused immediately on Lynn, who had risen from her seat to greet him. "Mrs. Chen," he said, his voice warm with genuine respect. "It's so good to see you again." Lynn smiled, her eyes appraising him. "Ethan Reed, you've grown into a handsome man." Ethan laughed, handing her the flowers. "And you haven't changed at all." It was a kind lie. Lynn had changed dramatically, her once robust frame now thin, her vibrant energy dimmed by illness. But the sentiment behind it was genuine. "These are beautiful," Lynn said, admiring the arrangement. "And please, call me Lynn. You're not a boy anymore." "I brought something else," Ethan said, offering the gift bag. A small token. Lynn opened it curiously, then gasped softly. Inside was a delicate jade bracelet, similar to one she'd owned years ago that had been her mother's. "I remember you telling me about the one you lost during the move," Ethan explained. "How it had been your mother's. I saw this and thought of you." Maya watched in astonishment as tears filled her mother's eyes. The lost bracelet had been a source of ongoing grief for Lynn, a connection to her heritage and family history that could never be replaced. "It's not the same, I know," Ethan continued, suddenly uncertain. "But I thought—" "It's perfect," Lynn interrupted, slipping the bracelet onto her wrist. "Truly. Thank you for remembering such a small detail after so many years." The exchange moved Maya deeply. This thoughtfulness, this attention to what mattered to others, it was the Ethan she had known, the boy beneath the wealth and privilege who had once captured her heart. The three of them settled in the living room, talking easily about the past, about Lynn's treatment schedule, about Maya's work. There was no condescension in Ethan's manner, no discomfort with their circumstances. He seemed genuinely interested in their lives, genuinely concerned about Lynn's health. When it came time to leave for dinner, Lynn waved them off with a smile. "Go, enjoy yourselves. I have my programs to watch." "Are you sure you'll be okay, Mom?" Maya asked, always reluctant to leave her mother alone for long. "I'm having a good day," Lynn assured her, "and Zoe will be home soon." "Go." Outside, Maya was surprised to find not a luxury car waiting, but Ethan himself ready to walk with her. "I thought we'd try that Thai place around the corner," he explained. "Your mother mentioned you like it. Unless you'd prefer something else?" "No, that's perfect," Maya said, touched that he'd chosen something convenient to her home rather than an upscale restaurant across town. The evening that followed was as comfortable as their previous dinner, but with a deeper current of understanding between them. They talked about their families, about the years they'd lost, about the paths their lives had taken. "I've been thinking about what you said," Ethan told her as they shared mango sticky rice for dessert. "About dreams, about cooking for the joy of it." Maya tilted her head questioningly. "There's a vacant commercial space in one of our properties," Ethan continued. "Small, but with a good kitchen setup. It was a cafe until recently. I thought maybe you might want to see it." Maya froze, her spoon halfway to her mouth. "Why?" "Just to look," Ethan said quickly. "No pressure. No expectations. But if you were serious about wanting your own space someday—" "I can't afford to rent a commercial kitchen, Ethan," Maya said flatly. "Not now. Maybe not ever." "What if you could?" he pressed. "What if there was a way to make it happen?" Maya set down her spoon, a cold feeling settling in her stomach. "If you're offering charity—" "Not charity," Ethan interrupted. "An investment. In you, in your talent." "There's a word for that," Maya said quietly. "It's called a loan. And I've learned the hard way that debt only leads to more debt." Ethan seemed to sense he'd hit a nerve. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to overstep." "It's fine," Maya said, though it wasn't. I can't take on any more financial risk right now. My mother's treatment, our rent, it's already more than I can handle most months." Ethan nodded, accepting her boundary. "I understand, but will you at least look at the space? No strings, no expectations. Just possibilities." Put that way, it was hard to refuse. "Okay, just to look." After dinner, they walked back to her apartment building slowly, neither eager for the evening to end. At her door, Ethan hesitated. "I'd like to see you again," he said. "Maybe next weekend? We could do something simple. A walk, a movie." Maya considered his offer. These evenings with Ethan were becoming a bright spot in her otherwise exhausting life, a reminder that there could be more to her days than work and worry. "I'd like that," she said. "But it has to be Sunday again. My schedule is tight with Mom's first treatment on Tuesday." "Sunday it is." Ethan leaned in slowly, giving her plenty of time to pull away if she wished, and pressed a soft kiss to her cheek. "Good night, Maya." The warmth of his lips lingered on her skin long after he'd gone. The following week brought Maya's mother's first round of treatment, a grueling session that left Lynn weak and nauseated. Maya took time off from all 3 jobs to be with her, using up precious sick days she'd been saving. On Wednesday morning, as Maya sat beside her mother's bed, helping her sip water between bouts of sickness, her phone buzzed with a text from Ethan. "Thinking of you and your mother. Is there anything you need?" The simple message brought unexpected tears to Maya's eyes. The concern felt genuine, not performative. The reaching out of someone who cared, who understood that sometimes the hardest part of difficulty was feeling alone in it. "Just time," she texted back. "The first treatment is always the worst. The doctors say she should feel better in a day or 2. Can I bring dinner tonight? Something light for your mother, something substantial for you. No need to entertain. I can drop it and go." Maya looked at her mother, dozing fitfully after hours of discomfort, then around their small apartment with its empty refrigerator. She'd had no time to shop, no energy to cook. "That would be wonderful," she replied. "Thank you." Ethan arrived that evening with 2 bags of carefully packed food: clear broth and gentle rice porridge for Lynn, hearty pasta and salad for Maya, and freshly baked bread for them both. He'd even thought to bring ginger tea, known to help with nausea. But more importantly, he didn't just drop the food and leave. He stayed, helping Maya arrange small portions for her mother, cleaning up afterward, sitting quietly in their living room while Maya coaxed Lynn to eat a few spoonfuls of broth. "You don't have to stay," Maya told him when she returned to the living room, exhausted but grateful. "This can't be how you plan to spend your evening." "I'm exactly where I want to be," Ethan replied simply. That night, after Lynn had finally fallen into a more restful sleep and Ethan had gone, Maya found herself wondering about the man he had become. Not the wealthy businessman in the penthouse, but this person who brought food when it was needed, who sat quietly in a small apartment without complaint, who remembered details about jade bracelets and favorite restaurants. Perhaps Lynn had been right. Perhaps it was time to let a little hope back in. By the weekend, Lynn was feeling somewhat better, though still weak. She insisted that Maya keep her plans with Ethan on Sunday. "You've barely left my side in days," Lynn pointed out. "You need a break. And Zoe will be here if I need anything." Reluctantly, Maya agreed. Ethan picked her up as planned, but instead of suggesting a restaurant or activity, he drove them to a quiet neighborhood of mixed residential and commercial buildings. "There's something I want to show you," he said, parking in front of a small storefront with papered-over windows, the space I mentioned. Maya followed him to the door, curious despite her reservations. Ethan unlocked it with a key from his pocket and led her inside. The space was indeed small, but charming. Exposed brick walls, hardwood floors, large windows that would fill the room with natural light when not covered with paper. At the back, visible through an open archway, was a compact but well-designed kitchen. It was a breakfast and lunch place, Ethan explained as Maya wandered through the space. The owner retired, and his children weren't interested in taking it over. Maya ran her hand along the stainless steel countertop in the kitchen, trying not to let herself imagine what it would be like to cook here, to create here. "It's a beautiful space," she acknowledged. "But like I said, commercial rent is far beyond what I can afford right now." "What if there was another way?" Ethan asked. "A partnership of sorts." Maya turned to face him, wary. "What kind of partnership?" "Reed Enterprises owns this building," Ethan explained. "We're developing a boutique hotel 2 blocks over my design, actually, though no one at the company knows that yet." Maya's eyebrows rose in surprise. "We'll need a food service provider for the hotel," Ethan continued. "Someone to handle in-room dining, small events, that sort of thing. It could be contracted out." Understanding dawned on Maya. "And you're suggesting I could be that provider?" "From here?" Ethan nodded. "The hotel would guarantee a baseline of business, enough to cover the rent on this space at minimum. Anything else you wanted to do with it, catering, cooking classes, private dining, would be your business entirely." Maya walked slowly around the kitchen, her mind racing with possibilities and practicalities. "This is a lot to consider." "I know," Ethan acknowledged, "and I know your priority right now is your mother's health. This space isn't going anywhere. It's just something to think about. For the future." Maya turned to look at him, trying to read his motivation. "Why are you doing this, Ethan? Is it guilt about what your father did?" "Because if it is—" "It's not guilt," Ethan interrupted, "or at least not only guilt. It's because I see who you are, Maya, how hard you work, how much you care, how much talent you have. And I think you deserve a chance to build something that's yours." The sincerity in his voice was impossible to doubt. This wasn't the calculated move of a businessman or the grand gesture of a man trying to buy affection. This was Ethan seeing her, really seeing her, and offering not a handout, but a hand up. "I need time," Maya said finally, "to think about it, to talk to my mother, to understand what it would really mean." "Take all the time you need," Ethan assured her. "No pressure, no deadlines." As they locked up the space and walked back to his car, Maya felt a sense of possibility expanding within her, tentative but real. For the first time in years, she allowed herself to imagine a future beyond survival, beyond making it day to day. A future where she could create again, where her mother could be proud of her accomplishments, where work could be joy as well as necessity. A future where, perhaps, there might also be room for love. The days that followed were a whirlwind for Maya. Her mother's treatment continued, each session slightly less debilitating than the last, but still leaving Lynn weak and dependent on Maya's care. Her 3 jobs demanded whatever remaining energy she possessed, leaving her exhausted but determined to keep their fragile financial situation from collapsing. Through it all, Ethan remained a steady presence. He never intruded, never pushed, but he was there, bringing meals on treatment days, sending encouraging texts, sometimes just sitting quietly with them in the evening, his calm presence a comfort to both women. "You don't have to do this," Maya told him one evening as they washed dishes side by side, Lynn having retired early to bed. "I'm sure you have better things to do than hang out in our apartment watching my mother sleep." Ethan handed her a plate to dry. "Actually, I don't. This is the most meaningful part of my day." The simple honesty of his response caught Maya off guard. She studied his profile, the determined set of his jaw, the faint lines around his eyes that hadn't been there when they were younger. In the weeks since they'd reconnected, she'd come to see that the man beside her was both familiar and new, the boy she'd loved now tempered by years of experience, of compromise, of quiet rebellion against the life planned for him. "What about the company?" she asked. "Don't they miss their CEO?" A wry smile crossed Ethan's face. "Reed Enterprises has survived without me before. It will again." Something in his tone made Maya pause. "What does that mean?" Ethan was quiet for a moment, focusing on rinsing a glass. "I've been thinking a lot lately. About the company. About my role in it. About what I really want." "And what do you want?" Maya asked softly. Ethan turned to face her, his eyes searching hers. "The same thing I wanted 11 years ago. To design spaces that matter. To build something I believe in. To be with someone who sees me, not my family name or bank account." The intensity of his gaze made Maya's heart race. They stood close together in the small kitchen, the air between them charged with possibility. "Ethan," Maya began, not sure what she wanted to say, only knowing that something significant was happening between them. "I should go," he said suddenly, breaking the moment. "You need rest. But I'd like to take you somewhere tomorrow, if your mother is feeling up to being alone for a few hours. There's something I want to show you." Curious, despite her exhaustion, Maya nodded. "I'll ask her." The following afternoon, with Lynn's blessing and Zoe's promise to check in, Maya found herself in Ethan's car, driving toward the coast. The day was unusually clear for early autumn, the sky a brilliant blue that seemed to promise better things ahead. "Are you going to tell me where we're going?" Maya asked as they left the city behind. "It's a surprise," Ethan replied with a mysterious smile. "But I think you'll like it." An hour later, they pulled up to a stunning property overlooking the ocean. A modern building of glass and wood seemed to grow organically from the cliffside, its design both imposing and somehow harmonious with the natural landscape. "What is this place?" Maya asked as they walked toward the entrance. "The Reed Cliffside Hotel," Ethan answered. "One of our most successful properties. And the only one I've designed completely." Maya looked at him in surprise. "You designed this?" Ethan nodded, a hint of pride in his expression. 5 years ago, my father was ill. The first scare. Not this one. And feeling momentarily mortal. He agreed to let me take the lead on a new property, though I'm sure he expected me to fail. As they entered, Maya was struck by the thoughtfulness of the design. The hotel lobby opened to the ocean view, bringing the outside in with walls of glass. But rather than feeling cold or impersonal, the space was warm, inviting, with comfortable seating areas, local artwork, and a subtle color palette that echoed the natural surroundings. "It's beautiful," she said honestly. "It feels peaceful." "That was the intention," Ethan replied. "A sanctuary, not just a hotel. Somewhere people could reconnect, with nature, with themselves, with each other." He led her through the property, explaining his design choices, the challenges he'd faced, the compromises he'd had to make. His passion was evident in every word, his knowledge impressive but never boastful. "The restaurant is through here," he said, guiding her toward a glass-enclosed dining room that seemed to float above the cliffs. "This is actually what I wanted to show you." Maya stepped into the space, immediately understanding why. The restaurant was elegant but unpretentious, with an open kitchen design that put the chefs and their craft at the center of the experience. Large windows framed the spectacular view but cleverly positioned so that diners could enjoy both the ocean panorama and the culinary theater. The chef here was one of the first to embrace farm-to-table on this stretch of coast, Ethan explained. local ingredients, simple preparations that let the quality speak for itself. It's been wildly successful. As if on cue, a man in chef's whites appeared from the kitchen area. "Mr. Reed, we weren't expecting you today." "Chef Harrison?" Ethan greeted him warmly. "I hope we're not intruding. I wanted to show Miss Chen your beautiful restaurant." The chef turned to Maya with a friendly smile. "Always a pleasure to meet a friend of Mr. Reed's. Are you in the hospitality industry?" Before Maya could respond with her usual self-deprecating answer about being just a waitress and line cook, Ethan spoke. "Miss Chen is a talented chef considering opening her own establishment. I thought she might find inspiration here." The pride in his voice as he introduced her, not as a delivery person or a woman working 3 jobs to survive, but as a professional with valuable skills, touched Maya deeply. "I'd be happy to show you around the kitchen," Chef Harrison offered. "Perhaps stay for an early dinner? We're testing a new menu today." What followed was one of the most extraordinary afternoons of Maya's recent life. Chef Harrison treated her as a colleague, showing her the kitchen setup, discussing sourcing strategies, sharing the challenges and rewards of running a destination restaurant. During the tasting meal that followed, he solicited her opinion on dishes, nodding thoughtfully at her suggestions, even incorporating one of her ideas for a sauce pairing on the spot. "You have an excellent palate," he told her as they sampled a delicate fish preparation. "And good instincts. Have you considered consulting work? Many restaurants could benefit from your perspective." Maya glanced at Ethan, who was watching her with undisguised admiration. For the first time in years, she felt seen not for her struggles, but for her talents, her potential. On the drive back to the city, Maya was quiet, processing the experience. "Thank you," she said finally, "for today, for introducing me that way." Ethan glanced at her. "I only stated the truth." "But it's been so long since anyone has seen me that way," Maya admitted. "As someone with something to offer, not just someone barely keeping her head above water." "Is that how you see yourself?" Ethan asked gently. Maya stared out at the darkening coastline. "It's hard not to when every day is a struggle to make ends meet, when one unexpected expense could topple everything." "And if that weren't the case," Ethan pressed, "if financial survival wasn't your primary concern, who would you be then?" The question hung between them, profound in its simplicity. Who would she be if fear and necessity didn't shape her every decision? If she could choose based on desire rather than desperation? "I don't know," Maya whispered. "I've been surviving for so long, I'm not sure I remember how to dream." Ethan reached across the console to take her hand. "Maybe it's time to remember." The warmth of his fingers around hers felt like an anchor, a connection to possibilities she'd long since abandoned. When they arrived back at her apartment building, Ethan walked her to the door as always. This time, however, he hesitated before saying goodnight. "Maya," he began, his voice serious, "I need to tell you something. About my father." A cold feeling settled in Maya's stomach. "Is he worse?" "No, not his health. It's about the company." Ethan took a deep breath. "I've been reviewing old projects, ones that happened around the time we were together. There was a payment from Reed Enterprises to your father's former landlord. A substantial one, made right before your family moved." Maya stared at him, uncomprehending. "What are you saying?" "I think my father not only arranged for your scholarship to be rescinded, but also paid your father's landlord to terminate his lease on the restaurant," Ethan said, his voice tight with controlled anger. "He wanted your family gone, out of our hometown, away from me." The revelation hit Maya like a physical blow. She remembered her father's confusion when the landlord had suddenly refused to renew their lease, despite years of on-time payments. The scramble to find a new location. The fortunate timing of the job offer that had brought them to Westwood. "All this time," she said slowly, "I thought it was just bad luck, just life being hard. But it was deliberate. He deliberately destroyed my family's business." "I'm so sorry," Ethan said, his expression anguished. "I had no idea. I swear to you, I never knew." Maya believed him. The pain in his eyes was too real, too raw to be anything but genuine. "Why are you telling me this now?" she asked. "Because you deserve to know the truth," Ethan replied. "And because I'm going to make it right." "How?" Maya challenged. "You can't go back in time. You can't give my father back his restaurant, or me my scholarship, or my mother her health." "No," Ethan agreed. "But I can ensure that my father never hurts another family the way he hurt yours. And I can try to build something better from what he created." There was a determination in his voice that Maya hadn't heard before, a resolve that spoke of decisions already made. "What are you planning, Ethan?" He met her gaze steadily. "I'm going to transform Reed Enterprises. Starting with creating a scholarship fund for culinary students from disadvantaged backgrounds. And a small business investment program focused on family-owned restaurants." The scale of what he was suggesting took Maya's breath away. "Your father will never agree to that." "He won't have a choice," Ethan said quietly. "As of yesterday, I control 51% of the company. My inheritance from my mother, which matured on my 30th birthday. I never told him I was claiming it." Maya stared at him, seeing not just the boy she'd once loved, or the man she was coming to care for again, but someone with the power and determination to effect real change. "Will you help me?" he asked. "Not for the company, but for the students who deserve the chance you never got. For the families like yours who just need someone to believe in them?" In that moment, standing in the dingy hallway of her apartment building, Maya felt something shift inside her, a waking up, a letting go, a step towards something new. "Yes," she said, "I will." The weeks that followed were transformative for Maya, while her mother continued. Treatment, showing small but steady improvement, Maya found herself drawn into Ethan's vision for a different kind of company, one built on empowerment rather than exploitation. The commercial kitchen space she'd visited became her testing ground, a place where she could experiment and create while her mother rested at home with a home health aide Ethan had insisted on providing. "Consider it an advance on your consulting fee," he'd said when Maya had protested. "You're helping design the culinary scholarship program. That makes you a consultant." Maya had recognized the gentle maneuvering for what it was, a way to help that preserved her dignity, and had accepted with grace. The kitchen became her sanctuary, a place where she could rediscover her passion for food while contributing to something meaningful. She developed guidelines for the scholarship program, created a mentorship structure for recipients, and began outlining what a small business investment fund might look for in potential restaurant partners. Through it all, her relationship with Ethan deepened. They worked side by side during the day, shared quiet dinners with her mother in the evenings, and slowly, carefully, began to rebuild what had been so cruelly interrupted years before. "You seem different," Lynn observed one evening as Maya prepared a light meal in their small kitchen. "Lighter somehow." Maya smiled, realizing her mother was right. The constant weight of anxiety that had been her companion for so long had eased. Not disappeared. Her mother's health was still precarious, their financial situation still fragile, but no longer all-consuming. "I feel different," she admitted. "Like I'm finally moving forward instead of just treading water?" Lynn nodded approvingly. "And Ethan? He is part of this moving forward?" Maya thought of Ethan, his quiet determination, his genuine remorse for his father's actions, his commitment to creating something better from the legacy he'd inherited. "I think so," she said softly. "If that's okay with you. After everything his father did to our family." "The sins of the father are not the sins of the son," Lynn quoted. "Ethan is making his own choices now. Good choices, from what I can see." Before Maya could respond, there was a knock at their door, a familiar pattern that they'd come to recognize as Ethan's. "Speaking of," Lynn said with a knowing smile. Ethan entered carrying not food this time, but a thick folder of papers. His expression was serious but animated, like someone on the verge of an important announcement. "Sorry to interrupt dinner," he said, greeting Lynn with the respectful affection that had developed between them. "But I wanted to share some news in person." "What news?" Maya asked, setting aside the vegetables she'd been chopping. Ethan placed the folder on their small dining table. "The board approved the changes. The scholarship fund, The small business investment program, all of it. We announce next week. Maya gasped. Already? I thought it would take months of negotiation. It would have, Ethan acknowledged, if my father were still CEO. But he officially stepped down this morning. Cited health reasons. The board named me as his replacement, effective immediately. The significance of this development wasn't lost on Maya. Lawrence Reed, the man who had orchestrated the destruction of her family's stability for his own purposes, was no longer in control of the company he'd built. How did he take it? She asked quietly. A complex emotion crossed Ethan's face. Regret mingled with resolve. Not well, initially. We had a difficult conversation about the past, about what he did to your family, about the kind of company I intend to build. Maya could imagine that conversation, the confrontation between a dying man clinging to his legacy and a son determined to transform it. And now? She pressed gently. Now. Ethan sighed. Now he's had time to think, to consider his choices and their consequences. He's asked to meet you, Maya, to apologize in person. Maya felt as if the floor had dropped from beneath her feet. Meet Lawrence Reed? The man who had deliberately derailed her life, her dreams, her family's security. The very thought made her stomach clench with anger. I can't, she said immediately. I won't. I understand, Ethan assured her, and I told him you might feel that way. He doesn't deserve your forgiveness, Maya. But he is dying. And he seems genuinely remorseful. Lynn, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. Sometimes, forgiveness is not for the one who harmed you, but for yourself, so you can release the weight of anger and move forward unburdened. Maya looked at her mother, this woman who had endured so much, who was fighting for her life with quiet dignity, who somehow maintained compassion even in the face of injustice. Will you come with me? She asked Ethan. If I decide to see him? Of course, he replied. Whenever you're ready. If you're ever ready. Maya nodded, not committing but not refusing either. Tell me more about the scholarship program. When will the first students be selected? Ethan accepted the change of subject gracefully, opening the folder to show them the details of the program. As they reviewed the materials together, Maya felt a sense of purpose that had been missing from her life for too long. This wasn't just about her now, or even about righting the specific wrong done to her family. It was about creating opportunities for others who might otherwise be overlooked, about using privilege and power to lift rather than to crush. Later that evening, after Ethan had gone and Lynn had retired to bed, Maya sat alone in their small living room, considering the choice before her. Could she face Lawrence Reed? Could she listen to his apology without the bitterness of the past poisoning any chance of closure? She wasn't sure, but she was beginning to understand that moving forward might require facing the very thing she'd been running from for so long. The next morning, Maya woke with a decision made. She texted Ethan as she prepared for her shift at Brood Awakening. I'll meet with your father, not for his sake, but for mine, and for us, to close that chapter completely. His response came quickly. Thank you. This afternoon, I can pick you up after your shift. Maya agreed, then went about her day with a strange sense of calm. Whatever happened in that meeting, it would be on her terms. She was no longer the powerless girl whose dreams could be casually destroyed by a wealthy man's whim. When Ethan picked her up that afternoon, he seemed almost as nervous as she felt. We can turn around any time, he assured her as they drove toward the Reed family estate on the outskirts of the city. Just say the word. I need to do this, Maya said, surprising herself with her certainty. For too long, your father has been this shadowy figure with the power to ruin lives. I need to see him as he really is. The Reed estate was exactly as Maya had imagined it, sprawling, elegant, surrounded by meticulously maintained gardens. But as they approached the main house, she was struck by how quiet it seemed, how the grandeur was muted somehow, as if the estate itself were holding its breath. A housekeeper led them through the impressive foyer to a sunroom at the back of the house. There, in a wheelchair beside large windows overlooking the gardens, sat Lawrence Reed. Maya's first thought was how small he seemed. In her mind, he had been a towering figure of power and malevolence. The reality was an elderly man diminished by illness, his once imposing frame now frail, his face gaunt with pain. He looked up as they entered, his eyes, so like Ethan's in color but lacking their warmth, fixing on Maya with recognition. "Ms. Chen," he said, his voice weaker than she'd expected but still carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "Thank you for coming." Maya moved forward, Ethan a reassuring presence at her side. "Mr. Reed." "Please, sit." Lawrence gestured to the chairs arranged near his wheelchair. "I imagine you have little desire to prolong this meeting." Maya took a seat, her back straight, her gaze direct. She would not show fear or deference to this man, not anymore. "Ethan tells me you know what I did," Lawrence continued without preamble. "To your scholarship, to your father's business, to your family." "Yes," Maya replied simply. Lawrence nodded, as if her confirmation was expected. "I won't insult you by claiming I didn't know what I was doing. I knew exactly what I was doing. I saw your relationship with my son as a threat to the future I had planned for him, for the company, so I eliminated that threat." The cold calculation in his tone sent a chill through Maya, even as his honesty surprised her. "You had no right," she said quietly but firmly. "No right to interfere in our lives that way." "No," Lawrence agreed, surprising her further. "I didn't. I had the power, but not the right. It's taken me a long time, too long, to understand the difference." He shifted in his wheelchair, a grimace of pain crossing his face. Ethan moved as if to help him, but Lawrence waved him off. "I'm not asking for your forgiveness, Miss Chen," he continued. "What I did was unforgivable. I let fear and pride guide my actions, and I caused harm that cannot be undone. But I want you to know that I recognize the wrong I did, and that I support my son's efforts to create something better from what I built." Maya studied the man before her, this fading patriarch whose decisions had altered the course of her life. She had expected to feel rage when face to face with him, but instead found herself experiencing something closer to pity. "Why tell me this now?" she asked. "Why not take this regret to your grave?" Lawrence's gaze shifted to his son, a complicated emotion passing between them. "Because Ethan asked me to. Because he believes, rightly, that you deserve to hear it directly from me. And because I find, at the end of my life, that I want to leave with as few unacknowledged wrongs as possible." There was a sincerity in his voice that Maya hadn't expected, a recognition of harm done that didn't seek absolution, but simply acknowledgement. "I accept your apology, Mr. Reed," she said after a moment. "Not because what you did was excusable, but because holding on to anger will only continue to give you power over my life. And I'm ready to reclaim that power fully." Lawrence nodded, something like respect flickering in his eyes. "You would have made a worthy partner for my son, Miss Chen. I see that now. Too late." "Perhaps not too late," Ethan said quietly, taking Maya's hand in his. The gesture was not lost on Lawrence, whose gaze moved between them with understanding. "Perhaps not," he agreed. "I hope, for both your sakes, that is true." As they left the estate, Maya felt lighter, as if a burden she'd carried for years had been set down. The meeting hadn't erased the past or its consequences, but it had transformed Lawrence Reed from an all-powerful villain to a flawed, failing human being, someone who had caused harm but could no longer control her future. "Are you okay?" Ethan asked as they drove back toward the city. Maya looked out at the passing landscape, considering the question. "Yes," she said finally. "Better than okay. I feel free." Ethan reached for her hand. "Free to do what?" Maya turned to him with a smile that held all the possibility of the future they might build together. "Free to begin again. On my terms this time. Our terms." In the months that followed, transformation came to Maya's life with breathtaking speed. Her mother completed treatment, the aggressive cancer finally responding, giving Lynn a chance at recovery that had once seemed impossible. The small commercial kitchen became Maya's official business, a catering company specializing in fusion cuisine that bridged her Chinese heritage and modern California sensibilities. With Ethan's support, emotional rather than financial. Respecting her insistence on making her own way, Maya secured her first major client, the boutique hotel his design had brought to life. From there, word spread of her talent, her creativity, her unique perspective on food as both nourishment and connection. Lawrence Reed passed away quietly in his sleep 6 months after their meeting. Maya attended the funeral with Ethan, standing beside him as he spoke of a complicated man who had built an empire but had only begun to understand the true meaning of legacy in his final days. The scholarship program that bore the Reed name, but had been shaped by Maya's experience, welcomed its first cohort of students that fall. Young people from backgrounds like hers, with talent and determination but limited resources, now had the opportunity she had been denied. On a clear evening 1 year after their unexpected reunion, Ethan brought Maya back to the Penthouse where they had reconnected over a simple food delivery. This time, however, the space was transformed. The large living room filled with friends and family gathered to celebrate the official launch of the Reed Foundation, with Maya as its culinary program director. Lin Chen, now in remission and regaining her strength, beamed with pride as her daughter addressed the assembled guests, speaking passionately about second chances and the power of believing in people rather than just numbers on a balance sheet. "None of us knows what the future holds," Maya concluded, her gaze finding Ethan's in the crowd. "But when we support each other, when we lift as we climb, we create possibilities that might otherwise never exist." Later, as the party wound down and guests began to depart, Ethan led Maya out onto the balcony, where they had once shared wine and tentative dreams. "I have something for you," he said, producing a small velvet box from his pocket. Maya's heart raced as he opened it to reveal not a ring, but a key. "The deed to the commercial kitchen space," Ethan explained, "fully transferred to your name. No strings, no Reed Enterprises involvement. Just yours, to build whatever future you choose." Tears filled Maya's eyes at the perfect gift, not an obligation or an expectation, but freedom. The freedom to create on her own terms, to succeed or fail based on her own efforts. "Thank you," she whispered, taking the key, "for believing in me when I'd stopped believing in myself." Ethan drew her close. "That's what love is, isn't it? Seeing the best in someone, even when they can't see it themselves." "Love?" Maya repeated, the word both a question and an answer. "Love," Ethan confirmed. "I never stopped, Maya. Not really. And I never will." As his lips met hers, the city lights spreading out below them like stars fallen to earth, Maya felt the final pieces of her heart healing. Not back to what they had been, but into something stronger, wiser, more resilient. Life would still bring challenges. Her mother's health would remain a concern. Her business would face ups and downs. But now she faced these realities not alone, but with a partner who saw her completely, her strength and her vulnerability, her past and her potential. What had begun with a simple food delivery to a penthouse had become something neither of them could have predicted, a second chance not just at love, but at the dreams they had once shared, now reimagined for the people they had become. As they stood together looking out over the city, Maya realized that sometimes the longest journeys lead you exactly where you need to be, not where you started, but somewhere infinitely more meaningful. A place where past and future meet, where wounds become wisdom, and where love, when given room to grow, can transform not just 2 lives but countless others. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.